Hello friends, it's Victoria Calvin and welcome to Technique Tuesday here on the Scrapbooking Cards Today YouTube channel. Today I am sharing the new Spellbinders solid foil plates to create two really fun hot foiled design cards. This is a fantastic technique if you want to add some cool shimmer and shine to your card projects and to do some really fun effects by layering different colors of foil material and using that leftover material to create a fun design. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So here are the two card projects that I worked on, and both of these cards are A2 size cards, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Now Spellbinders currently has 4 of these solid plates available. The first two are the Essential Glimmer Solid Circle and Solid Square plates. As you can see, they are perfectly solid and you can do a lot of fun techniques with those. And the second two are the Essential Glimmer Rectangle and Oval shaped solid plates. Now you would use these plates with the Spellbinders Glimmer hot foil system or a similar product. You want to make sure that you read all of the product descriptions to make sure that these tools, or at least these hot plates, are compatible with the machine that you use. And I'm just pointing out there what machines those hot foil plates are compatible with. Now for today's project, I'm going to make 2 A2 size cards. One's going to feature a layered foil design, and from the leftover pieces from the first card, I'm going to create this second card that's going to give us a really cool design using one of the solid foil plates. As you can see, you don't have to waste any of the foil. You can actually reuse some of the foil to create really awesome looks for any project. And speaking of foil material, I have quite a bit in my collection as I'm learning more about this technique. So they do come in collection packs, which are fantastic. And then there's individual rolls of the foil that's also available. For this project, I'm going to be using silver, prism, and teal. Now, hot foiling requires both heat and pressure. So for the pressure part of this technique, I'm going to be using the Spellbinders Platinum 6 cutting and embossing machine. And then, of course, for the heat part of the project, I'm going to be using the Glimmer hot foil system. So that platform there will heat up and it will warm up the metal plates. And I will also use the thin shim and the spacer pad that come with the foil system, and that will lay on top of the hot plate along with the foil. And I also have a piece of cardstock. I like to add just an added extra shim just to add additional pressure onto the project. So we're going to start with the first project, and that's going to be the layered foil technique. Along with the rectangle solid foil plate, I'm going to be using the Glimmering Peony foil plate as well. And this is a design from Yana Smokala, which is absolutely beautiful. I'm also going to use Yana's special sentiments to create sentiments for both of my cards, along with the prism and teal foil sheets. To begin, I'm going to turn on my hot foil system platform and let that heat up. There are indicators on the machine to let you know when it's ready. I'm also going to trim down a piece of the prism foil sheet to roughly the size of that rectangle solid foil plate. And that way I'm not wasting much foil, but I can also help to prevent, or at least lessen, the opportunity for the foil to over foil, meaning that you get foil in places that you don't want the foil to be. And sometimes that does happen. I'm going to use this tool. This is also by Spellbinders, and it helps to cut the foil. Mine actually got caught up a little bit on the blade, but that's okay. I eventually cut down that piece of foil. I'm also going to bring over a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 smooth cardstock, and that's recommended for hot foiling. Once the hot foil platform is heated up, I can go ahead and add my solid plate right there on the platform. And it's going to be warm, of course, because it's a hot foil system. So you do want to use tools to help move your hot plates around. Once it's positioned, I'm going to press this little timer button. When the timer button flashes solid, it is ready to foil and my hot plate is warmed up. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add my foil material right on top of the foil plate, and notice that it's added shiny side down, and that foil plate needs to be design side up. I'm going to add my cardstock, and this is Hammer Mill cover copy. Very, very nice cardstock. It's nice and smooth and receives that foil very nicely. And then I'm going to add my shim and my spacer plate. And I'm also going to add just 2 extra pieces of cardstock that I have marked shim. And that's just going to help to apply a little bit more pressure when it's running through my die cutting machine. I'm going to add all that on top of the plate, remove it from the dock, And then I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. So now I have the heat applied to the plate. I'm going to add pressure to the plate. And what that cutting machine is doing is it's adding pressure to the plate so that that foil then is added to whatever substrate you're using. And in this case, I'm using solid cardstock. One thing to remember is you want to run your platform through very, very slowly. You don't want to go fast. That way it has an opportunity to add pressure to that plate. Once you're done, you remove your shims and the foil from your substrate to reveal your foil design. And in this case, it's a solid rectangle design. I love how that prism foil just picks up all kinds of colors. It's absolutely gorgeous. Now I'm going to use a tool to remove my hot plate from the platform because I'm done using it. I also want to use a tool because those plates are going to be super hot. So you want to try to remove that with some sort of tool. I'm going to go ahead and set that on my silicone mat. And to remove any over foiling, so that extra foiling that gets on your project, you can use a sand eraser, which I prefer. You can also scrape it off with a craft knife, but I prefer a sand eraser. It's a little less rough on your substrate. And all you do is just take that sand eraser and rub that over the over foiling, and I'll show that here in just a few. Next up, I want to add the layered part of this project. So I'm going to grab the teal foil, and I'm going to use the Glimmering Peony hot plate. I'm going to go ahead and cut out the foil roughly to the size of that hot plate, again wanting to preserve as much of the foil as I can. I might have some extra bits that I can use for like smaller sentiments. So I like to save all the scraps because eventually you can use them. I'm going to lay that right there on the hot foil platform, turn on the timer, and once it's ready, I can apply my foil material right on top. Remember, it's pretty side down, and of course your design of your foil plate is up. I'm going to take this panel that we did our rectangle foil design on, and I'm just going to place that right on top, and I just want to center that panel right over the plate. Now there is a way for you to sort of sandwich your foil and your cutting plate and kind of adhere it together with some washi tape so that it stays in place. But for this project, I kind of knew where I wanted it to go, so I just laid it right down there on top of the foil. All right, I'm going to add my shims and whatnot, run that through my cutting machine. Again, nice and slow, allowing the pressure to add to that design to transfer that foil right onto my cardstock. And then once it's done, I can pull it back and reveal the layered foil design. Isn't that beautiful? And you can continue to just layer and layer different foil colors on top of your project to create a really fun dynamic design. Now what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to trim it down, but of course now I have this leftover piece and I don't want to waste that. You're going to see what I'm going to do with that here in just a second. I'm going to remove my hot plate from the platform, and now I'm ready to assemble my card. So I'm going to trim down this particular panel to 3 by 4 1/4. And then I'm going to adhere that onto another panel that's going to be 4 by 5 1/4. I love how the flowers just kind of dangle off the edge. I like that edge to edge design. It's absolutely beautiful. Before I actually assemble a card, I need to work on my sentiment. So using the Yana Special Sentiments, I'm going to go ahead and grab that teal hot foil. This time I'm going to use my rotary cutter, that is, to cut the foil. That's another option. And I really like using this because it's really easy to cut the foil with that. I'm going to pop that on my hot platform, press the timer button. Once it's ready, I'm going to add a piece of that foil right on top. Again, the shiny side down, design side up. I'm going to add my substrate as well as all of my spacer plates and shims, run that through. Again, it's going to be a little bit slower. I have this video sped up so that looks like I'm rolling it faster than what I actually am. I'm going to return that to the dock and peel that off to reveal my hot foiled sentiment. This set does come with a set of matching dies, coordinating dies that go with the sentiment. So I'm going to run that through. This time I'm going to be using my plates for die cutting, running that through my die cutting machine to cut out that sentiment. And there we go. Beautiful hot foiled sentiment, perfect for this project. Now it's time to assemble the card. So I have a 4 1/4 card base made out of gray cardstock. It's kind of a heather gray cardstock. I also have another panel that's cut to 4 by 5 1/4. And then of course I have my foiled panel that's cut to 3 by 4 1/4. Next, I'm adding some roller adhesive to the back of the panel. I'm just going to add that to my card base. And that's just going to give a nice, crisp, clean border around the foiled panel. To the foiled panel, I'm just going to add some foam adhesive from scrapbook.com. I love this size because it fits perfectly for the smaller panels on a card project. I'm just going to trim off a piece, kind of rough cut that, and lay that right on that foil panel. And that's just going to give it a little bit of height and dimension and would be absolutely perfect to send through the mail. It's not too bulky. I'm going to go ahead and adhere that down. And once that's adhered down, I'm going to add my sentiment. So using some more foam squares, I'm going to take the sentiment, and the sentiment says, on your special day. So eventually someone will get this card who's celebrating something, I'm not sure, but it's ready to go when I'm ready to send it. I'm going to go ahead and position that to the bottom right of the card, just overlaying that on top of the flower. And then to finish this project, I'm going to add some silver pearl embellishments from Studio Katia. I'm just positioning those on the card base, and then I would adhere them, or I am adhering them, using some liquid glue from Barely Art. Just a little tiny tab of glue will do the trick. Once that's done, my card is complete. I love how shiny and beautiful this is. It's super high impact with not a whole lot of embellishing because it just simply doesn't need it. And I love how the colors bounce off of that prism foil. For the second card project, I'm going to use the leftover foil to create this really fun design. This is a really great technique when you need to use or want to use your leftover foil. Waste not, want not. So let's go ahead and get into it. So to begin, I'm going to repeat all the steps that I did in project number 1, only this time, instead of using a solid piece of foil, I'm going to use the leftover foil. Once the plate is nice and hot and ready to go, I'm going to position the leftover foil on top of the circle. Again, it's going to be shiny side down, and I can kind of see the foil plate in between sort of the open spaces of the flower. I'm just going to position it in the middle of the circle, and there is going to be some of this design that will not be captured in the final foil project, and that's okay. It's going to look like the foil or the floral design is kind of going edge to edge on the circle. I'm going to add my solid white cardstock substrate, smooth white cardstock, along with my shims and my spacer pad. I'm going to run that again slowly through my Platinum 6 embossing machine, and that's going to apply pressure to that plate. Once that's done, I'm going to peel back that leftover foil and look at that awesome design. It layered right there on top of the foil plate, so you can see the negative and positive spaces of that design. And now you have a completely different design for your card. Now remember that sand eraser I was telling you about? Well, I had a little bit of oil over foiling, say that fast 10 times. I'm going to use that sand eraser to remove that over foiling and to clean up this card panel a little bit. Once that's done, I'm going to trim it down. But first I want to create a sentiment. I'm going to go back to the Yana Special Sentiments, and this time I'm going to grab a sentiment that says, "You are a wonderful friend." I'm going to trim down some silver foil sheets, or just one silver foil sheet that is. And of course, I'm going to place that shiny side down on top of the foil plate. Notice that the design of the foil plate is up. And then once that's ready to go, I'm going to add a piece of smooth white cardstock from Hammermill. Of course, my shims and my spacer pad, and I'm going to run that slowly through my die cutting machine, adding pressure. And that's of course going to apply that foil right onto my cardstock, and it is good to go. As with the first sentiment, I'm going to use the coordinating die to cut out the sentiment. I love sentiments that have coordinating dies. I'm completely sold because I don't like always a fussy cutting. So to have a die makes the process a lot quicker. Once that is cut out, I'm ready to assemble the card. I'm going to take a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card base, top folding, made from heather gray cardstock, and I'm just going to trim up the edge of this panel. And I think I trim it down to approximately 4 by 5 1/4 inches. I'm going to go ahead and adhere that right onto the card base, but this time I'm going to use a little bit of foam. I'm going to use a solid foam sheet, trim that down to roughly the size of my card panel, my foiled card panel. And that's a double-sided adhesive. Peel off the release paper and then add that to my card base. And it's absolutely perfectly fine to send through the mail. It's not super dimensional. And then I'm going to add some foam squares to the sentiment. And of course, pop that onto the card right in the middle. And I think that's absolutely pretty. I love how the silver kind of coordinates with the teal, and then you have the subtleness of the gray. It's beautiful. Going back to those Studio Katia embellishments, I'm just going to add a few of those little pearls just for added shine and dimension, using some Barely Art glue. Very pretty. And here is the card project complete. I absolutely love this design, and it's a super great way to use up those scrap foil pieces. So now that both of my card projects are finished, I'm going to continue foiling all the things because honestly, these techniques are really, really fun. I hope you are inspired to foil all the things as well. For more details about the Spellbinders hot foil plates and all of the fantastic tools and materials that go along with hot foiling, make sure you check out Spellbinders. Also, don't forget to go to the Scrapbooking Cards Today blog to check out the blog post for these projects. And as always, thanks so much for stopping by.